Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for that warm welcome. It's great to be back at your dinner tonight. Today, Parliament met to commemorate the life of Jo Cox, a mother, wife, daughter, sister, passionate campaigner and politician cut off in her prime. Jo's brutal murder has profoundly shocked and sickened our whole country. And there is, I believe, a wider message for our country about the things we hold dear. We should treasure and value our democracy and the way our politicians are out there in public, with the public, accountable and available to the public, because that is how Jo died, doing her job, serving her constituents on the streets of Birstall. We should remember that while there are many passionate debates and disagreements in politics, we are all ultimately in public life to serve others and to act in the national interest, as Jo did so often, making our country and our world a better place. And we should remember, too, that our democracy here on these islands is a remarkable and precious thing. We have peace, we have stability, and it is underpinned by tolerance. So where we find hatred, intolerance, or division, we should drive them out of our politics and drive them out of our communities. And no community understands that better than our Jewish community, the importance of confronting hatred and prejudice in all its forms. In an extraordinarily moving statement just hours after her death, Jo's husband Brendan called on us to honor her memory by fighting against the hatred that killed her. And I know that together we will answer that call. And in doing so, may her memory be for a blessing. Or as I believe you might say, Yehi Zichra Baruch. It's great to be back at your dinner this evening and have the chance to show my support again for the fantastic work that you do. Now, since I called the European referendum way back in February, you won't be surprised to know that a number of things in my diary have been moving around a little bit in the last 3 days before that vote. But there was one engagement I was always going to keep, and that was speaking at this dinner. And my friends, I want to say some very simple things tonight. The first thing is that I love you. Obviously, all of you individually, as I've got a referendum to win this Thursday. But no, I love Jewish Care and what you do. So much of what you do epitomizes what I'm getting at when I talk about the big society. Whether it's your army of 3,000 volunteers, the 12,000 kosher meals on wheels you provide, your pioneering wraparound care, you don't just leave things to the government. You get up, you make a difference, you serve your communities, you help others, you bring people together to play their part. And that is the big society, Jewish Care in action. I saw it as leader of the opposition when I visited Rayla Goldhill Lodge in Golders Green, and I met Simon Davis, who is here this evening, who's not just a resident, but also a volunteer, skydiving from 15,000 feet to raise thousands of pounds for Jewish Care. I saw it when I visited your Martin B. Cohen Center, inspired by Marcia Feldman, mother of my good friend and tennis partner, Andrew. And I saw it again tonight when I met the incredible Millie. You'll hear her story later this evening. But let me just say this. She is 99 years old and a complete inspiration. She tells you why Jewish Care is so special. Because without being collected by that Jewish Care minibus and being taken to that Stepney Green Day Center, she wouldn't see anyone or have anywhere to go. But with Jewish Care, she has a life She has friends. She has a place to shop, a place to get her hair done. She has a family again. That is the difference that you make and you'll make tonight at this dinner. So I have no hesitation in saying dig deep and help to fund this organization. Because you know what? You are the best of Jewish and the best of British. Second thing, I care passionately about your security. We have seen shocking anti-Semitic attacks in France, Denmark, Belgium, and other parts of mainland Europe. And sadly, we've seen growing examples of anti-Semitism here at home. I hate it that this scourge has returned to our world and specifically to our country. I promise that wherever we see an anti-Semitism, from politicians who should know better, to abusive graffiti daubed on synagogues and homes, I will do everything I can to drive it out of our country. So let me tell you, as long as I am Prime Minister, you have got that extra £10 million I promised CST every year for as long as necessary. It's guaranteed for Gerald and all those heroes and heroines working for CST. I am backing you all the way. And let me tell you something else. We're not just going to tackle the consequences of the security threats we face. We're going to tackle the causes too. And that means teaching our children the fight against hatred and prejudice in all its forms. Which is why, because of the Holocaust Commission that I set up, we are going to have a proper national memorial to the Holocaust right next to the mother of all parliaments. And we're going to have a world-class learning centre too, standing proudly to articulate our values to the world and to ensure that every generation from now on learns the lessons of the darkest hours of humanity. Third thing, I'm not just a great friend of the Jewish community here in Britain, I'm also a great friend of Israel. I will never forget taking that helicopter ride in the skies above the homeland of the Jewish people. On the left, the Mediterranean. On the right, the River Jordan. I saw with my own eyes the vulnerability of this narrow strip of land. But I also marveled at what the Israelis have built there. From desert to city, from empty space to enterprise, or as Shimon Peres once said, from oranges to apple. It is one of the most remarkable stories of the modern democratic world. And I'll never forget my visit to the Knesset either, where I learned a new word, balagan. I don't know whether you saw the shouting, the barracking, and frankly the fighting that took place before my speech in Jerusalem. But it certainly prepared me for BBC's Question Time show last night. But the point is this: Israel is the democracy in the Middle East. And as I said in the Knesset, I will always stand up for the right and obligation of Israel to defend its citizens, a right and obligation enshrined in international law, in natural justice, and in fundamental morality. I will never stand by when people talk of boycotting Israel or when Israel is under attack from rockets or terror tunnels. Because with me you have a Prime Minister whose belief in Israel is unbreakable and whose commitment to Israel's security is non-negotiable. So I love Jewish care. I care deeply about your security and about the future of Israel. But there is one other issue that, of course, I want to talk about this evening. And that issue is whether we remain in a reformed European Union or whether we quit and leave for good. Now, I know by now you have heard so many facts and so many figures, but for me it all comes down to one simple word: together. When we're fighting terrorism and Islamist extremism, are we better doing that out on our own, or are we better fighting together with our European friends and partners? When we want to create jobs and trade for our businesses, are we better out on our own, or are we better off together inside the largest single market in the world and helping to set the rules of trade in the process? When Europe is discussing its attitude to Israel, do you want Britain, Israel's greatest friend, in there opposing boycotts, opposing the campaign for investment and sanctions, or do you want us outside the room, powerless to affect the discussion that takes place? As I said last night, in my office, I sit 2 yards away from the cabinet room where Winston Churchill made the greatest decision in our history, when he decided to fight on against Hitler. He didn't want to be alone. He wanted to be fighting alongside the French and the Poles and the others. But Britain was alone. And at that moment, he didn't quit. He didn't quit on European democracy. He didn't quit on European freedoms. And we want to fight for those things today, but we can't do it if we're not in the room. It's about the kind of country we are and the kind of country we want to be. And when I look at that poster, which Nigel Farage stood in front of for the Leave campaign, I see the opposite of everything that makes our country great. I am proud that Britain is home to people who fled persecution, including those who fled from the Nazis or from Russian pogroms. So I say we should say to Nigel Farage and his campaign of division and intolerance, we don't want your vision of Britain. We don't want what you're selling. You're not describing the kind of country we want for ourselves or our children and our grandchildren. And I say on Thursday we should vote decisively to reject it. I always find that when I come to dinners in your community, they're some of the most patriotic occasions I ever come across. And that is what is so amazing about our Jewish community. You are the model how to integrate into modern Britain. And there's also something so special about modern Britain. We may not be perfect, but we are one of the most successful, multi-ethnic, multi-faith democracies anywhere on earth. And when I think about this vote on Thursday, yes, I think about keeping us safe against terrorism and doing that together. Yes, I think about the strength of our economy and strengthening it together. But I also think about the strength and the role of our country. And I want to tell you this, that having been your Prime Minister for over 6 years, I am in absolutely no doubt that Britain's proud influence in the world isn't diminished by being in the European Union. It's enhanced. We are better able to get things done. We're better able to stand up for Britain in the world. Whether it is fighting climate change, combating terrorism, standing up to Russia, stopping Iran getting a nuclear weapon, we don't reduce our power, we enhance it. And to me, as someone who loves our country, I want us to be as great as Britain can possibly be. So I say, let's take this amazing community, let's take this great country, and let's vote to make it greater still on Thursday by remaining in a reformed European Union. But let me finish by saying this. However you vote, and I know all of you will, because you believe in exercising your civic duty, however you choose to vote, my message tonight to you is have a great dinner, fund a great charity, give thanks for a great community, and celebrate what a great country we are building together. Thank you.